entails and what is expected of marketers these days. And we realize that the expectation has definitely shifted from just putting together great looking ad campaigns and being able to get impressions and brand share and share of voice and all of those nice things. It's actually moved to people that need to be a lot more scientific, and it's marketing has really become a science. And we realized that it's a little bit like a battlefield. So I think the art of war has been used in many instances as a business uh, a business comparison, and we decided to base this webinar off that. So today is all about how we gain that data, how do we prepare that data, and how do we actually inform ourselves as marketers by using this data, and then pivot our decision making and focusing on the right things. So that's a lot about what you'll experience in today's webinar. And I think just invitation from our side is we want you to be able to go away from this webinar with something that you can go and implement already within your organizations. But we are also going to allow some time at the end of the webinar where we'd really like your questions so we can keep it engaging, and then just foster an environment where we can actually learn from each other as well. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand over to Mr. Mark Schaeferman here, and we'll get this going.
Awesome. Thanks, Johan, and morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us, and really appreciate your time. I think to Johan's point, we definitely want to keep this engaging. So if you've got any questions as we go through the presentation, please just drop them in so that you don't forget, and we can cover it at the end. I think to Johan's point, like maybe just to start with the context, anyone that's been in marketing for whatever amount of years, if you studied marketing, you would have learned about the 7 Ps. I'm not sure if you guys can relate. I mean, I studied and did my honors, and I was left quite disappointed leaving there that there's only 7 Ps to marketing. And when you start getting into the industry and you start actually applying your marketing strategies and your learnings, you start realizing that it's far more scientific than that. And it's actually all about marketing tech. And that almost becomes the foundations for any business and business strategy. So what you tend to find in any sort of marketing presentation is often this beautiful funnel. And I think that's something that John and I are always quite vocal about, is that it would be a lot easier if the marketing funnel was this neat and linear and every customer just went through a very succinct and direct flow. But sadly, like every customer's purchase decision is unique. What influences them is unique. Their entry point is unique. And through this, it becomes quite a complicated, scientific and ongoing job that you need to keep applying within the business. So anyone that's kind of attended a presentation of one of mine before, like I tend to always show this video, but starting off with this quote by Sam Walton, like I really love the fact that, again, the customer is the one that can fire everyone from the exec team to the CEO just by spending their money elsewhere. And this is quite an old video. You'll see through some of the applications of the social media references, but really, I think this is probably more relevant than ever before. So I'm going to quickly play this.
For decades, the experts have been proclaiming the dawn of a new revolution, a world where customers are no longer at the mercy of corporations, where they don't have to suffer through bad service or broken products, long waits or endless phone trees, and where they have no real voice or no recourse. Until now, it's been a hollow proclamation. Welcome to the world of the ever-connected, always-on, highly opinionated, on-the-move customer. This is a customer who understands they now have power, and they know how to use it. They have expectations, and they have choices if those expectations aren't met. And boy, do they have choices. They also have a voice, and it is loud and far-reaching. To earn their loyalty goes way beyond a loyalty program. You need to earn their trust, because make no mistake, this is a trust revolution. You need to recognize them as more than just numbers or accounts, but as unique human beings with a distinct set of needs. They now expect more than just a product or a service from you. They expect a relationship that is on equal terms. They give, you get, you give, they get. They expect to be at the center of your world, and you, my friends, need to put them there.
So I think with that, I mean, now more than ever, customers have far more choice. If you think about the different verticals, they almost don't exist anymore. So telcos want to be banks, banks want to be telcos, retailers want to be everything. So the vertical lines are completely blurred, and customers have control. So before it was about, there were only the big four banks or the big four telcos, but they have far more choice now and flexibility. So they're always on, they're always connected. And even with that, it's no longer about just the share of their wallet or their spending power, but it's the share of their screen. Like if you're not on that home screen with an app and you're not relevant in their world, then it becomes very difficult to earn their trust and earn their loyalty. And really, I mean, the challenge is like to get their attention. If you just think about South Africans spending more than 10 hours a day on screens, it's frightening to think about how do you get your marketing message in front of them with the right message, right product, and at the right time. And the control, if you think about in the past, contracts were a thing and you could get kind of sign up for fiber for 24 months. But those days are past, even in terms of the way we watch TV. We spend money now to block ads and not see advertising. So the power shift has really gone towards the customer, and their attention is far more complex than before. So to Jean's point, we really see this war concept around, there's a war on contactability. We're still doing lots of SMS and email campaigns, but to try get a message crafted on the right channel to that customer's preference is a challenge. And really, again, like the customer's purchase decisions and their unique journeys are all different to other customers. And when we look at the funnel, so going back to that linear concept of a funnel, ours is slightly more complex. And this goes back to that science around marketing. And it's really enabled through technology, data, AI, and automation at scale. And that's really the demo that Jean's going to take you through a bit later. And I think when you start to see how this all comes together, it really becomes a tool that you need to have in your asset list as a marketeer, particularly in this day and age. So it all starts with understanding your customer. Obviously, again, you guys understand your customers better than anyone else. It's understanding their needs, their pain points, their preferences. And that starts to inform how you create your marketing strategies, how you put together those comms, those campaigns. And that then comes into the omni-channel experience across app, website, portals, whatever those channels might be. But where it gets slightly complicated around that acquisition funnel is that everyone has a different entry point. It doesn't start at the top. So someone might come in the middle, they might come on an email com versus seeing a GDN banner or a search. And once they come into your funnel, it's about being able to visualize and identify where that leakage is happening. So at what point do you have a drop-off? And then it's the science about trying to identify why there is a drop-off at that point. And ultimately then, and Jean will cover quite a few of these different aspects, but when that conversion happens and you kind of get that user into your CRM system, it's starting to build out that single view of customer and really understand them and see them as an individual, not just another account number and not just another part of a big segmentation, but really enabling you to start to personalize their journey and experience with you as a brand. So this is something that John and I are very passionate about in the sense of like the lifetime value of a customer. So there's a lot of focus around campaigns and acquisition, and we need to get just the cost per acquisition lower. But what's that lifetime value of the customer, and how do you start focusing on that? And you have the same challenges. So through those journeys of upselling, cross-selling, you're gonna have things like leakage in those funnels. But you really want to start focusing on how do you get someone from acquisition, so from that original lead, all the way through to converting on that lead management or the CRM system, and then into your world as a customer. But over time, and this is really what we're going to cover today, is how do you start to look at that attribution modeling? How do you start to visualize all of your data in one place so that you can look at like what was the most optimal assisted conversion journey? which channels within the mix were most effective in terms of driving the right cost per acquisition or the right conversion rate. And the reality is, like, if you don't have all your data in one place, you have no ability to start doing any sort of attribution modeling. And that's what John's going to take you guys through today. And the reality is that any sort of conversion rate optimization or attribution modeling, it's influenced by many aspects. So often people will assume that it's just a UX thing and we need to move the button from left to right or change the color. But again, humans are complex things. So to try and understand what was the barrier to the conversion could be a number of different facets, from creative to messaging to the actual performance of the technology. And that all starts to come into play once you can visualize this data. And ultimately, experimentation and optimization needs to be an always-on effort. Like, customers' expectations are evolving every day. So if it's not part of your business as usual every single month, then you're going to be left behind. So that exponential growth in terms of learning, optimization, only comes in once you start to have this view of your business across all the different channels. And when you have the ability to start testing across those different channels, or again, the mix of media used or budget, you can then really start to understand how various cohorts start to convert more effectively or more cost effectively. And really, this graph is just to depict that often what happens is that we spend a lot of time, energy, and budget around doing more campaigns, and we focus on the acquisition. And usually it's a case of like law of averages. And if we fill the funnel enough at the top, we'll net out with the right number of customers. But if you start to form this as part of your business and the DNA of how you operate as a collective exec team, you really start looking at continuous improvement. And ultimately, your channel mix and your cost per acquisition starts to reduce because you're looking at all these different elements. But again, you need to have all that data in one place. And through that, and some of the optimization and the campaign optimization comes in around how do you start personalizing those journeys at scale? And that's where you need to have this technology in place in order to actually facilitate that. So what to expect with what John's going to cover. So strategic insights, like we often talk about big data, and we're a data-driven organization, but how is that data being leveraged to draw out real insights and actionable insights? Benchmarking is another thing that we always talk about. So in my previous life, I used to work in a full service digital agency, and it was always that safety net of like an industry benchmark of like saying, your campaign performance is 0.05, but the industry benchmark is 0.06. So you're actually doing really okay. And so for us, it's about how do you set your own benchmarks? Do you have a benchmarking strategy? Do you know what your current state is in terms of where you're tracking? And how do you start creating ambitious goals that you can work towards as a business and meet those benchmarks? And again, actionable insights. If you can't, there's a great book again called Measure What Matters and Objectives and Key Results. If something's not actionable or quantifiable, then it's not really going to support or help your strategy in any shape or form. And just going back to the agency world or our experience as marketeers, and this is just, I'm sample size of one, but often what tends to happen is that you'll have a multitude of different agencies or service providers. So you might have a social media business, paid for media team, direct comms. And really what tends to happen is that reporting happens post-campaign. So everyone comes together after a 2-month or 3-month period, and we do a big post-campaign analysis. But then it's too late. Like, we could have learned something in week 1 or day 1 and optimized that campaign on the fly because we had access to that data. So what you tend to find is that in many organizations, this is the current state, and it's about, again, being very siloed, very static, limited attribution views. And when Jean and I host different like webinars or marketing breakfasts, and we ask the question around how would you find this data, often the thing is we'll chat to the BI team or we'll send a request to the IT team. But those teams don't necessarily have the perspectives or the views that you have as a marketeer. So what we're going to cover today and what John's going to go through is like, how do we enable you as a marketeer to have the tools, to have the data on hand, to create different views of that data, to then make informed decisions, but also know that we've got AI capabilities that's constantly looking at the performance of all your various campaigns based on the kind of cost per acquisitions or the targets that you put in place, and giving you the nudges to optimize at any point in time. So instead of waiting at the end of a month when you're getting the static report, you can do it and you can be in control of your campaign. So what I'm going to show is just like a quick overview of the cloud intelligence capabilities. And then Joanne's actually going to take you through a strategic approach to get this set up. And then we're going to end off with an actual live demo just to show you some of the capabilities.
As a marketer, you engage with your audiences across different channels and campaigns every day, using a lot of tools that are each generating a lot of data. To drive growth, you need a complete picture of your marketing performance. With Marketing Cloud Intelligence, you can connect all of your marketing data into one system of record for holistic reporting, measurement, and optimization. Easily bring in all of your top marketing data. Simply enter your credentials, and our out-of-the-box connectors do the rest. Or with just a few clicks, you can let our AI automatically connect and organize any data source in minutes. Then, our easy-to-use real-time dashboards put your goals, trends, and insights at your fingertips. Compare and contrast the performance of all your channels and campaigns in one view. Or drill down for deeper insights with dashboards for optimizing your email marketing campaigns, your paid advertising across every channel and audience, or your lead to opportunity pipeline. And with AI surfacing daily insights about things like campaign performance, you can start making data-driven decisions right away, delivering greater ROI across all.
Right. Thanks, Mark. Part of what we want to discuss today, so obviously what Mark has gone through is kind of some of the pain points that we've seen, and some of the stuff that marketers deal with every day, right? But this is almost like going to the doctor's office. That's the symptoms, and we kind of we need to give the medicine now. And we are going to go through a couple of points, and this is exactly the stuff that we were talking about that you can actually take away from the session. So we'll talk about general attribution frameworks, and what that exactly means. The attribution funnel, and where we can visualize funnel leakage, and more importantly, what do we do next? How the data flows. So understanding where our data is and the capability of something like Marketing Cloud Intelligence that can be used to connect that data, so it really becomes an automated process instead of a manual lift and shift, like Mark said, waiting for IT to fall into the priority list before you can get the data, and then you might as well just wait for the agency to give you the campaigning data or the campaigning report at the end of the month when the money has already been spent. Then your marketing channels, I think, like Mark also explained earlier, we are dealing with more and more social media channels, engagement channels where people interact with our brands. And it's understanding from analyzing client behavior, which of these channels will actually be the best for conversion, and also understanding that they will change, meaning that today I might convert on WhatsApp, but then my behavior might change to email, depending on what the product or service is. Then reporting, and I can just imagine all the marketing people going, yes, because the sales manager and the CEO and the CFO all want to know where's all this money going that we are spending and putting into our advertising. And then we'll go into a little bit of a persona comparison. So what we want to do or highlight with the persona comparison is that visualization of these engagement metrics. They manifest in different ways in different levels of our marketing operations, right? So we'll go into a little bit more detail there. Okay, so the general attribution framework can generally be defined as the association between marketing efforts, and the general definition is comprised of 3 touch points, right? So this can obviously differ if you have more touch points, but we have our engagement, we have all of this campaigning strategies, all of these paid advertising campaigns, etc., that is there to do the outbound and engage with clients, right? The idea in this instance is that the leads get pushed to a specific entry into the funnel. In this case, we are looking at the website, right? And then our third touch point would be our lead management system, or CRM. So visualization of this attribution framework allows you to actually optimize at each one of these touch points. So if you look at your marketing engagement, and Mark alluded to it earlier, and you start seeing that you get a drop in open rates, or you get a drop on click-through rates, or you get a drop on website conversion, website traffic, as an example, you have to go and look at the messaging that's going out to clients. This will then immediately allow you in one space to see, okay, our outbound that needs to drive people to the entry of our funnel is faulty, right? So that's almost like trying to open the tap, but there's an issue at the at Randwater or wherever it might be. Then secondly, we have the website, right? So in many cases, traditionally the entry of the funnel, but this can be forms on social media. This can be inbound to your call center. The idea is we want to be able to kind of create that net and say, like, this is all the fish that we've caught, right? But the reality is we have various boats out on the lake busy fishing, and we want to go and determine which one of these are actually driving the big fish, and actually fish that we're not going to catch and release, right? So that's where we start building what is called the funnel, right? So before I get into the attribution funnel, the third touch point is lead management and in your CRM, right? So in a lead management system or your CRM. I think every marketer has at some point in time had a conversation where it is sales and marketing, and the question comes up to say, okay, why haven't we had X amount of sales in the last month? The conversation between the CMO and the CRO then becomes quite hairy at times. So the CMO would say, listen, I brought 1,000 leads this month through all of our campaigns. Your team is not closing it. And the CRO is saying, well, the feedback I'm getting from my team is that the leads are rubbish, right? And then we all know how that conversation unfolds, but then it's already too late because the money has been spent and we are now reactive in changing our approach. So what the lead management system with the CRM would do, and being able to visualize that, is it's almost thinking about this lead being marketing's baby, and in the CRM system being able to track that this baby is actually growing up and being nurtured into what eventually becomes a conversion. I think many times as marketers, we do neglect to have a strategy in place to say, how do we communicate with a lead while they're on the lead in the sales operation process. So a lot of times we refer to it as silent episodes. So let's take an example of somebody going to a restaurant, right? Your patience differs in various stages when you're at the restaurant. So when you rock up to the restaurant, didn't make a reservation, and they tell you, okay, listen, you have to wait for 15 minutes. That's palatable, you will be seated within 15 minutes. The moment that you arrive at the table, that time of patience actually reduces, because now you want a menu, you want to start looking at something to order, and then once you receive that, then it reduces even more. So thinking about those silent episodes, if you can manage those within the sales operation cycle, meaning somebody will be in contact with you. Sorry, we couldn't get a hold of you, but here's a contact form. When can we contact you? This is the quote that we've been able to generate for you. Being able to nudge people to accept that quote without that having to sit with a salesperson and creating that bottleneck. That is obviously the visualization and optimization that you'll be able to get out of the framework as well. Okay. Then if we look at the general attribution funnel, yeah, I've kind of taken you through the sequence in the funnel, but what we want out of this visualization is exactly where this funnel is leaking. So I'll use an example of a client where we were able to visualize visits to the website related to questions being answered to qualify the lead to contact form being filled in and then being passed over to the sales team, and then actually how it converts within the sales process. And we've seen, well, what we picked up in that visualization is that in the qualification process, there was quite a high drop-off between, let's call it sequence 4 and sequence 5. We were then able to sit and say, look, it might be that this question is too vague. It might be that it is creating a lot of friction, maybe asking for specific documentation too quickly. And we were actually able to remove that question, and it was a 3-day turnaround, which obviously then increases the conversion of that funnel at the end of the day. So Mark spoke about it earlier. I think my biggest pet peeve is the fact that sometimes with marketers, we are okay with receiving reactive campaign performance data or reports. It's really difficult to pivot based on something that happened, 30 days, a month. Oh, well, that's the same thing, 30 days, but 2 months, whatever ago. So with the 24-hour lag in the data between what you're doing in your paid advertising, marketing cloud or marketing automation, or whichever CRM you're using, and being able to push that to something like MCI, that really becomes a proactive way of managing and optimizing this funnel. So like I said, your marketing engagement, that's what the Lucky Beard guys are great at. Like, what does your engagement look like? How do we design it? What's the things that we need to communicate to actually get the client to act on the call to action? And you can see that in your traditional metrics like click rates, open rates. If you have delivery issues, then you're probably sitting with bad data, which means you can actually go back to your teams and say, we need some data hygiene processes in place. So that marketing, that's kind of the traditional stuff that we are all used to looking at. Secondly, what happens if we get people onto the site? So if we, for instance, seeing that we have a good click-through rate, but then we have a terrible bounce rate on the website, that means that there's holes in the net, right? The fish is getting to the net, but we've created too big a hole for them to go through. Those holes are normally positioning. So I clicked on something about a unique selling point or a unique selling point for a product that drew my attention, but then I get to the website and it's not related to anything that I clicked on, or it is vague or whatever it might be. And then lastly, like I said, the lead management system, that's just becoming a little bit more involved in the sales process. So ultimately, the data within the sales or the lead management process is going to inform the two things that are at the top of the touch point or the attribution framework as well. Because you would be able to gain information out of it, say, this is how people are reacting. When we speak to them, they're still not really clear on what we do. We're still getting a bunch of unqualified leads through the system, which means we can do more for qualification before people actually get into the funnel. So engaging with your sales teams as marketers is critical for you to be able to get all of the information, to be able to form those strategies and to be able to pivot as soon as possible. I think Mark made this abundantly clear, and I think we can all just think about how we interact with brands in our personal lives as well. It is not the traditional open ad, click here, then I'm ready to buy. Personally, I don't like spending a lot of time in retail shops, but I do a lot of time. I take a lot of time to actually do my research. So when I stop at the mall, I'm in and out because I already know what I want to buy. But as a marketer, the difficult part of that is what is actually leading to the sale. Now, it doesn't mean because this data sits in disparate places that it can't be harmonized. The only thing that it means is we need to identify where we can track that specific data. And as shown in the video, the integratability of something like Marketing Cloud Intelligence allows you to be able to pull data from all resources or all of your data sources, and then being able to visualize that. And you're still not waiting for it for weeks on end, but it really becomes a quick turnaround for you. And I'll show you when we get to the demo and the what now part of it. Even if we have even if we have situations where we don't necessarily have the skill internally to be able to interpret the data, something like Marketing Cloud Intelligence has built-in AI recommenders that can help get the thinking going. So before we move into that part of the presentation, this is just a general idea as to the level of complexity when it comes to being able to visualize attribution for various channels. So your paid media, organic, social media, direct marketing, that's pretty simple because we know we can track those digital assets, right? Marketing events, if you have something like Marketing Cloud or some marketing automation or something like Pardot or whatever it might be, you can start tracking your submissions at your stalls or whatever the event is. So it can actually pull in directly. So it is complex, but it's not impossible. And then above the line, because you have flat files that you can upload into Marketing Cloud Intelligence, you are able to harmonize all of your paid data of your paid channels with your billboard advertising, radio advertising, TV advertising, etc. Alrighty. Then just quickly on the persona comparison. So as I said earlier, it's important to understand, obviously, within our marketing teams, we do have various tiers of competency and responsibility, right? It is important for everybody in this structure to have some form of visualization that is relevant to what their role is. So the idea with something like Marketing Cloud Intelligence is to be able to give these personas a view that is relevant to what they do on a day-to-day, what they would do on a monthly basis, what they would do to make strategic decisions. So let's say your website team, they would be fairly interested in, firstly, how many people are we getting to the site? Are we tracking the UTMs that are pushing them there? And then how many of these people that come to the site are actually converting into contacts, or filling out contact forms? Then your marketing team would start saying, okay, is our messaging right based on those deliveries, etc. So that they can actually pivot something like A/B testing based on subject lines or graphics that are being used in emails, etc. But your CMOs would like to see, okay, we're actually spending 500,000 Rand a month, million Rand a month, whatever it is, on paid advertising. Which channels are performing? Which campaigns are actually driving not only conversion, but actual money in the bank? And then I think on that strategic level, it's always also saying, like Mark said earlier, the big focus should be on what the customer lifetime value is. Now, customer lifetime value is only perpetuated by your retention strategy, right? So we kind of fall into this this misnomer that it's only about acquisition, but the reality is it should be about acquisition and retention. So there should be a part of what you are doing from an outbound strategy or from an engagement strategy to also start upselling, cross-selling your current base and retaining those clients as well. And the CMO would then have that view to say, okay, how can we actually split this? How's our retention looking? What can we do to keep our clients for longer so that customer lifetime value can increase? Alrighty, so we're going to quickly show you what this looks like within the platform itself. So this is a demo account, and this can obviously look different. It can be skinned to what the colors of your organization is. It can have different metrics, but for a demo, we need something to show, right? So this is pretty much plug and play. If you look at your Facebook ads, Instagram, Google ads, and then Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which in this case would be your marketing automation system, have connectors in Marketing Cloud Intelligence that you can connect directly to the tool. So out of the box, there is your general metrics that would be available. So your cost per clicks, your cost per impression, your cost per million impressions, your cost per acquisition, etc. So connecting that's already a win, right? So like Mark said earlier, you have possibly, or worst case, you have 6 different agencies that you have to deal with. That means you're getting 6 reports and 6 different times in the month that you have to go and collate and then be able to read that back to your team, decipher, analyze, harmonize, etc. Where in this case, everything is actually in one space. So you can actually see how is Facebook performing versus Instagram versus Google Ads versus TikTok. How's my outbound direct communication performing? And these dashboards are all interactive. So it can give you a lot of information with regard to how your campaigns are performing. So if we look at, for instance, this Google Ads campaign, you would see that you have, 3 different campaigns here at the top, and you'll be able to compare what your impression shares, but you will always also be able to say what your cost per click, and then ultimately want to see what your cost per conversion. So again, this is talking about your cost per conversion for that contact form being filled in. We want to use this information to take it a little bit further, so that you can actually see how your campaigns are performing when it comes to actual money in the bank. So if we...
So maybe one thing I was just going to add, just on the reporting side of things, which is quite a common pain point, is all those isolated reports would normally stop up to perhaps this level. So we're running Facebook ads, we've got lots of eyeballs, so we've got lots of impressions. That becomes a big vanity metric. We got so many clicks and they came to the website. This piece here is often what you never see. So being able to actually then see, that's great that we got so many impressions, so many clicks, but what was the actual conversions? And that's where this integration layer and the integration strategy becomes really key. And the other one is again, having everything in one place. So often we'll be running, say, several different campaign creative ads on Facebook and Instagram, and you want to see, so going back to that always on testing and A/B testing creative and messaging, is it shouldn't be complicated. So being able to then view the creative that's performing the best, being able to just drill deeper with a couple of clicks. So in here, I can then go see which creative's performing most effectively, and then all the way down to an actual sale. So that's something that I think for any marketeer is a game changer. So never mind just the harmonizing of all data in one view, but to be able to get to the point of real conversions and ROI versus vanity metrics.
Yeah. And then taking it further, right? So you can actually you can change up the views. You can actually go and determine what is your worst performing campaigns and the reasons why they are not performing as well. And I mean, cost per conversion is something that we'll probably chat about that in every single webinar that we do. But being able to see this information and then go to the next step and say, okay, but what do we do about this, right? So we probably have a campaign that is not performing as well as one of the other campaigns on the other channels, but I'm not 100% sure that I have the capability in the team to analyze that, or I have a little bit of marketeer's block, and I can't think of what I need to do or suggested next best action. There's AI recommendations built into the process, into Marketing Cloud Intelligence, just to kind of help get that strategic thinking on the go as well. So this one would say, pause the following campaigns on Google Ads, a member acquisition for. So this is this member acquisition for campaign over here. You can then say why. The above campaign leads the campaigns lead to the same, which performs much better in terms of cost per visit. So you can then see there is a multitude of, based on the data that is already within the MCI, that you don't have to go and activate, or you don't have to build some formula to give you this information back. It is literally there so that you can act on that.
And maybe again, just what we tend to pick up with all these different conversations is you're a marketeer, perhaps working on a big 360 campaign or just marketing comms as usual. And what you find is that capacity and bandwidth within a team is just limited. You can only do so much, and the expectations on your role and what you need to achieve just keeps growing exponentially. But having this sort of AI capability where you know it's always on, it's always analyzing the data in live time versus reactive, and then being able to just like deep dive and say, okay, cool, let's pause it, let's see what happens. But just being able to click through these different views and going back to the funnel that we played back earlier is trying to look at that attribution and that assisted conversion, like which touch points are working most effectively based on the objectives. So again, different campaigns will have different objectives. So some for creating awareness or creating engagement, creating leads, all of them have unique kind of conversion metrics. And that's why it's important to understand that context, but then to set up these campaigns in the funnels based on the framework that Joan shared earlier. So you'll do that for every single campaign, but then you have this ability to view the data at a click of a button.
So with that being said, that is pretty much the end of what we wanted to show you. So we'd like to invite you to ask any questions. Mal, can you maybe just check in the chat if there's any questions, and yeah, we invite you to please do so. There might be somebody else on the call that also benefits from the question and the answer.
And it's at this point that you hope there was someone on the other side for the last hour.
Mel, do you have any questions? Okay, cool. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. We will be sending a recording of this webinar. Just hold on a second. So Janine, I hope I'm saying that correctly, as a question, which is saying, how can your system help show management the difference between sales and marketing efforts and how to possibly improve each, right? So I think that falls kind of squarely into the attribution funnel idea. When we see a lot of intake, and that's where that funnel view is important. If we see a lot of intake into the funnel, and then all of a sudden we see a 30% drop before we get to the next qualifying tier of the attribution model. We know we are missing a beat when people actually enter the funnel and moving on to that next decision. So I can use an example of a conversation that I had yesterday. A prospective client mentioned that they are receiving a lot of calls a specific time of the year. It's seasonal, but like 2,000 of, let's say 30% of the calls that come in, they close, but the other 70% people doing research, but now they have people phoning them, right? So through visualization and using something like Marketing Cloud Intelligence, we can actually use that to say, okay, the marketing team should come up with some form of qualification that can be marketing automation, AI assistant, whatever it might be, so that the 70% of people that are just gathering information can do that without actually requiring time from the call center agents. And that is just possible by actually looking at that data and saying, okay, we're seeing that drop off. But Janina, I think the important part is we as marketers would need to be able to sit down and we need to be able to quantify and to say, why is this possibly happening? And that is then how you would be able to say, okay, guys, we are seeing drop-offs in the sales funnel. We are seeing leakages in the sales funnel, and we need to do X, Y, and Z to improve that. And this is the timeline to be able to do that.
And I think just going back to almost that funnel that we visualized, it's often a case of the two aspects of the business live in isolation. So there's a marketing report and then there's a sales report. So how you start to visualize that journey of a customer end to end, so that then there is a bit more accountability around where that funnel leakage happens in the actual conversion to lead to sale, but then the actual sales onboarding journey of a customer. And I think that's often the case is like, it's one thing to sign up as a customer, but that's when your customer experience and that loyalty and the trust starts to get built. And Jean's reference about the restaurants, your patience then diminishes because it's like, guys, I've just paid, you've just done a debit order. What does that onboarding journey look like? And then that lifetime value of that customer over time becomes important to visualize as well.
Yeah, I think the last thing that I'll add to that, Janine, is something like Marketing Cloud Intelligence as a component called actions. So let's say, for instance, you put a sales conversion metric in of, or a goal of, 10% for a specific campaign. And the data comes back and you are at 8%. There's actually notifications that can go out to the CMO, marketing manager, sales manager, whoever it is, so that they can actually see, okay, this campaign is not performing as well as it should. We need to take action on that campaign. So that, again, is where the proactivity comes in, and not being reactive at the end of the month. I hope that helped. Cool. Doesn't look like we have anything else. So we will be in contact just after the session. There will be a recording that we send to you if you want to review it in your own time. And we'd like to also present you with a possible offer, but based on your organization. So it's not something generic I'd like to share on the call. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye.